SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, on location today where we have relocated the Element Wealth Studio to Columbus, Mississippi for the Columbus Convention and Visitors Bureau remote today. Beautiful setting if you're tuned in with the river behind us here. So Rhino safe and sound, tucked away into the SuperTalk Mississippi headquarters. We'll be guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Hump Day.
Made it to Hump Day, and I'm in Columbus today. It really is a Chamber of Commerce weather day for sure. Beautiful setting up here as we are just into spring now. And they've got a big tournament, big Bassmasters tournament coming up. We've been teasing that the last couple of days on the program. We'll find out more about that later on today. Lots of stuff going on in the news. We got a good show for you to catch you up on all of that. We'll start at the federal level. The president had provided a 15-point peace proposal to Iran yesterday, and just got word that Iran has roundly dismissed this proposal. No surprise, and now has issued a counter proposal, as they still do have some ballistic missile capability, which they are launching, though the numbers per day are dwindling, declining significantly, which means that their ballistic missile capability has been significantly impaired, and so that's a good thing. But the other thing, of course, Rhino, is that when they launch these missiles, doesn't that allow us to figure out exactly where the launch sites are so that we can destroy them? I guess that's just all what you do when you're going down as an act of desperation. But Iran says they're not down. The president has also said, though, that they have agreed to completely eliminate and abandon their nuclear ambitions. But can these people be believed? I don't really think so. But that's exactly what the president says. He says that that's essential before our military operations cease in the region. He says we're talking, quote, to the right people in Iran to secure a deal and end this conflict. And he also announced that the U.S. intends to deploy thousands of troops to the Middle East, including U.S. airborne troops, and is focused on reopening the Strait of Hormuz, which, of course, as you know, is significantly constricted the flow of oil into global markets. It accounts for about 20% of total oil produced in the world, passes through that strait. And so that's why prices are up. But when the president announced that it appears they have abandoned their nuclear ambitions, and he's indicating a high degree of confidence in winding this thing down and getting the strait reopened, investors reacted positively to that. The price of oil sold off, and the rally was blunted somewhat, so we saw the price of oil drop, although it's still quite elevated relative to where it was before the war. It's still in the 90s. That's $30 more a barrel, about 40% more than it was before the president ordered these attacks on Iran. And Americans are feeling the pinch. There's no doubt about it. I think it's one of those things where, okay, we can absorb these higher costs, but honestly, guys, some people can't. I mean, their just budget is super tight, and it's built around that. We're starting to see truckers really speak up about how this is negatively impacting their businesses. Our critical farming community in the state of Mississippi also being impacted by this, as well as the inflation associated with other inputs to the agricultural process. So I think it's one of those things where people can try to make do and get through it for a period of time, but they ultimately say, okay, you said 4 to 6 weeks. We're in week 4 now. I think we're going to have to see some action, and folks want to see the price come down. I'm not confident we're going to get back to where it was before the war started, talking about the price of oil per barrel for quite some time. And so I think we'll continue to see prices of end-user fuel, gasoline, diesel, stay elevated, not like they are today. I do expect those prices to come back down to earth because they're out of sight and out of control right now. But hopefully the president is making progress. I mean, my money's on him negotiating a deal on behalf of this country. So I feel good about that. And so do markets. Last I checked, Rhino, all the markets in the green and are looking pretty good today. And that's just because they're feeling a bit more chipper about the situation. Although the gains now have been trimmed. The Dow up about 248, the NASDAQ 197. Earlier in the session, the Dow had crossed over 500. Of course, it's had a massive sell-off this month. And if you've got the stomach for it, jump in. This is what's crazy, Rhino. The cost, the price to earnings ratio, PE ratio, that's really what is used to determine the price of a stock as being either cheap or expensive. And typically what you look at is where does that price earnings ratio stand with respect to the overall market. So NVIDIA, for example, is trading slightly lower than the overall PE ratio in the S&P 500. NVIDIA is the most profitable company in the world at this point. So I would say, as the big-time investors like to say, it's on sale right now. So if you've got the stomach for it, jump on in there and buy it, because I personally believe that it's headed back up significantly. And the same can be said for some of these other big tech names, which I think have been grossly oversold. And so I think we can expect more money to start flowing in there. But today, investors feel pretty good. Here at home, Rhino sent me something yesterday that I also heard about from Senator England, who was on the program. Didn't dig into it yesterday because we were running out of time. But this has really made the headlines across the state, and that is a veto by the governor of a disaster loan program bill that the lieutenant governor says that the governor's rationale for vetoing is inaccurate. And, in fact, the governor, he got pretty perturbed about this. And so the governor's belief was that a measure was sent to and make sure I get this right, Ryan. I want to make sure this is really important. Was sent to the governor's desk for signature. The governor's contention was that, based on some activities that he observed, that the Senate attempted, at least, to amend that measure after it was transmitted.
That was the contention, yes.
Okay, and that is unconstitutional and just breaks all kinds of rules and laws and protocols and so forth. And And so this was based on a motion made by Senator Tyler McConn asking for unanimous consent. And Rhino, are we surprised that this is another one of those situations in the state Senate where we've got a measure, and we'll get into it in a second, that deals with financial matters, but the language just didn't reflect the intent, kind of like the misplacement of the decimal point last year on the tax reform bill. And the bottom line before we go to break is that it was the governor's contention that, wait, you're proposing amendments on the floor there to legislation you've already sent to me for signature. And according to the lieutenant governor, no, that was on a different measure. And this measure hadn't been sent to you yet when this motion was made to it's modified, amended the language slightly to reflect what the intent was. And this had to do with a disaster loan program to our cities and counties from this recent winter storm that came through. So this has really ignited quite the firestorm. We'll dig into it a little bit more on the other side of this break. Once again, the Element Wealth Studio is in Columbus for the Columbus Convention and Visitors Bureau. Coming right back with Michael Busby. Stay with us.
Hello. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays Live. What a beautiful setting we have for us today at the Columbus Convention and Visitors Bureau remote. And we're pleased to welcome now Michael Busby, Vice President of Career Technical and Workforce Education, East Mississippi Community College, Executive Director of the Communiversity. Michael, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it very much. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about EMCC and the Communiversity and some good things happening there. So
you bet. I know there's lots going on there. Always marvel every time and just smile when I pass by that Communiversity on the road out here en route. I've said before, I think it's just a fantastic model. I think every community college in our state should replicate that. So congratulations to you guys for the great work. It just makes perfect sense. As a longtime employer, you know, you hear it all the time, and I know this is the goal. Employers want to think, they want to know, they want to have confidence that what students are learning in the classroom as part of their education is preparing them for the actual jobs they're going to work once they're out and they're employed.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think we do a great job of that there. Now, all of our community colleges in the state do a good job of that. But I want to kind of hit on some classes and programs there a second, if I can, the career technical side of the house that leads to that employment you're talking about.
Sure.
You know, the model for education has really changed a lot, in my opinion, and we've seen this and done this. But when I was young, which has been a while, you know, you went to the university, you got your bachelor's degree, you talked about maybe a master's degree, and they said you're going to conquer the world, make a lot of money. It didn't really work out that way every time, did it? So Now these career technical 2-year, even 1-year programs in some cases have been really on the rise. We have grown with those. And we have a very diverse offering. There's over 40 some odd career tech programs, some of those in the Communiversity, some at the GT campus, some in Scuba. And things such as mechatronics, industrial maintenance, electrical technology, and then go in a different direction, cosmetology, barbering, culinary arts. All those things have just grown to the point where students are realizing they're keeping their debt down by coming in and doing 1 or 2 years, and usually getting a lot of that paid for by aid and different scholarships. They're going to work after 2 years, and they're making really good starting salaries staying in Mississippi. So it's a win-win for us, for the students, for the employers, as you said. We just think that model has really taken off. And then the other cool thing is, a few years ago, this stuff wouldn't transfer to MUW, MSU, and now they realized, hey, these kids are getting a good education. They're taking those transfers, and they're getting the 4-year degree to go on top of that for promotions at their job. So it's really been a big thing for us in the state, I think.
And I can certainly attest to that as well, having seen so many of the fantastic graduates that go through those programs and talking to the instructors and the folks behind the scenes that make all that work. And you're so right. You know, back in my day, the more traditional linear curriculum was good, but you'd find yourself, and employers would get frustrated because, well, that's great, except that's not actually what we do here. Yeah. And this is more aligned with that. And I think that's been the evolution in education in general. Would you agree?
I do agree completely. And our state has embraced that, really.
Yeah, I agree.
We've got leaders at the level of Jackson legislators and folks at the state level that realize this, and they're pushing people towards more of this. Now, that model to go to the university is still great. It still works for a lot of people.
Sure.
And certainly I did that. We all did that. So I think that's also a good model, but the option is to go the other routes.
Yeah.
And to me, the key is, a lot of people need to figure out where they're going to live. And if they're going to stay local, stay in the GT area in Mississippi, these trade school things really, really are a great deal. And honestly, those starting salaries in a lot of cases outdo the four-year stuff. They really do. So,
and I was just reading a report this morning about the challenges in the job market for the 4-year degree. Not trying to discourage folks from that, but it's a pretty tough job market out there right now.
It is. It really is. And that's why, we are blessed with such a great little area here. The industry has grown here.
Yeah.
We've partnered with all these new companies for sure for these career tech programs, also for workforce training. We do a lot of workforce training individualized for companies like PACCAR, Steel Dynamics, ADI, Aluminum Dynamics, Yokohama over in West Point, Airbus, and I could go on and on. I'm sure I left some out, so don't hold that against me, please, guys. But those companies have hired. They've come in here. They've asked for extra training on the workforce side, which is a non-credit style training, but still very, very important to support the industry. And again, those folks are getting to go to work quickly and doing real well. So that's the best part of the whole thing.
So talk about that a minute, Michael, because you guys at the community university, for sure, you actually are instructed by and work hand-in-hand, collaborate with the employers to develop the instruction, the curriculum.
Correct, we do. So that works a couple ways. We do offer some standalone across-the-board classes anyone can come take, so such as a CDL, commercial driver's license type thing, maybe construction training, but we'll get information or reached out to from an industry saying, hey, we need specific training in maybe a crane operator, maybe forklift. It could be anything really.
Sure.
And we've got folks on hand that have the expertise. If not, we go find more folks that do have it and provide that training for the industry, and they send their people to us. They come in, go through a short-term program, go back there and fit in better. In a lot of cases, get promoted and raised up in some cases. There, across the board, I can't speak for that, but certainly that does happen. So that's a big piece, I think, of the training we do and the training we need for this area. Again, a lot of folks deserve some credit for that as well, but we love playing a part in that for sure.
So I'm certain with all the communications tools that are available to us today, you stay in touch somewhat with the graduates that go through the programs, and they come back and give you some feedback?
We do. That's one of the things we track. I mean, we're required to track that, and we want to do it anyway.
Sure.
But I'll tell you the job placement rate that when they get out of here, we do track that number, and I'll give you a ballpark number there, and that varies per program.
Yeah.
With the career technical stuff, right around 90% of the kids that come out of here, and I say kids, it could be adults in some cases,
sure,
that graduate are working in the field or related field, and that is
awesome.
That's an awesome number, and that's a number that most community colleges in our state, it's pretty close there. So I'm giving my sister colleges some love. They do the same thing. Yeah. It's really good. But that's what you want. You want to see those kids going to work and what they paid to come get done at their school. So.
You talked earlier about the support that this receives from our lawmakers, our legislators, our statewide leaders. It does feel like we're somewhat ahead of the other states in this area.
I would agree with you on that. I mean, again, I don't know that I've got a real measurable with the other states, but I can promise you that our governor and the legislators and Accelerate Mississippi and the group there at the state level have done a lot of homework and do a good job of supporting the efforts at community colleges and driving the industry efforts and making sure that we're training people the right directions, and that is certainly appreciated. And as you said, I do think it's put Mississippi forward a lot more than maybe other states.
I think we'd have to agree that the results speak for themselves when you've got massive amount of investment coming into our state. And these employers, they're aware of these programs here, and they know that helps fill out their workforce.
That's right. And, the career tech side, we actually let the employers come in, and they talk with curriculum about us. So we've got a committee with the employers. And, for example, the welding group, we've got a group of welders that come in here and sit down with our teachers and the dean and say, all right, we're teaching, we want to know more about this for our employers, and they want this training, and we can add that in, without going through a huge rewrite at the state. If it's fairly small, we can do that. If we need a rewrite, we do it. But certainly that is a part of the curriculum development, even on the transcript credit side it is.
Yeah. So what about the kids that go through those programs and then continue on with their education and advance to the traditional 4-year schools?
Yeah, so that's kind of a newer thing, but most of those kids go to work first, and then an employer may say, hey, Mr. Doe or Sir, we want to move you to a supervisor, but in order to do that, we need a bachelor's degree. Okay. They go back, they call them UW, MSU, whoever it may be. All of our state schools are doing this now with the Career Tech transfer credit and say, hey, I need this young man or young lady to be trained in a bachelor's degree. They can do most of that online now to finish that degree, and they still can work, but they get that promotion in the degree so they can go forward. So that's been a big deal for us as well. Now, some go straight, but most of them go ahead and work, and they come at it back on. Okay. Well, it sounds like overall it's creating lots of positive benefit for the state of Mississippi. It is. It really is. And, I'm just happy to be a part of being out there. And we have great faculty, great trainers, great teachers out there. So I got to give props there for sure. I just get to sit there and kind of watch it all work, which is great. So yeah. And having visited and toured the community university, I could say it's world class. I mean, like I said, this is what education really should look like. We're proud of it, and of course, that was an effort by our state and by our local governments, and a lot of folks had to do in that, and we appreciate that. And some Washington support too, right? Absolutely, yes, sir, yes, sir. No, it makes total sense, and I think it's a shining star, a tremendous asset for not only the community but for the entire state of Mississippi. I brag about it all the time, and especially when I think back. Before we understood that was a preferred approach to training. Of course, the world is so specialized today, right? It is. You almost have to. It is. I don't know really how kids come in and right now don't have that understanding and make it. And we try to tell them. I will say that narrative's changed some. Our high school counselors, our parents are kind of figuring this out now. Before it was like, man, go to college, college, and that's still great. Sure. But these other things now, they're starting to see, hey, this is a really good avenue to go down. I think you're exactly right, and I think the best is yet to come. Honestly, I agree with you. So congratulations to you guys and all that you do to help the state of Mississippi. Michael Busby, Vice President of Career, Technical, and Workforce Education at East Mississippi Community College and the Executive Director of the Communiversity right down the street. Michael, appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. We're stepping aside for a break right now. Once again, we're in Columbus, Mississippi for the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau at 10:50. It's Francis Glenn, the Tourism Director. Stay with us.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Drinks. Boys in the band ordered 4 drinks. Visitors scored on the home rink.
Welcome back, everyone. Middays is live from the Element Well studio out on the balcony up in the Columbus, Mississippi at the Columbus Marina. We're here for the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau. We'll talk more about what big event they got going on up here in the next segment with Tourism Director Francis Glenn. But a gift to the conspiracy theorist, Rhino. Last week, you probably saw this, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency registered the domains alien.gov and aliens.gov. Those two URL domains have been added to the official government website registry. What does that mean? Boy, all the theories are just going wild. It's pretty neat to watch all this. This is a time, of course, when the official U.S. government interest in UFOs has really pretty high these days. And now there's concerns over national security in this age upon us with drones and the stuff going on in the Middle East and terrorism attacks, small in nature, but still you've got attacks going on in this country. 2 weeks ago, 3 attacks by naturalized Americans. These were illegals that came here, went through the process, became naturalized, and then decided to go play shoot 'em up because they don't like Jewish people for the most part. But the alien.gov and aliens.gov websites have been officially registered. Read whatever you want to into that, folks. It's pretty interesting for sure. The other big thing that's going on, of course, is the long lines in the airports. Now, I heard this morning that ICE agents being on hand in Atlanta have essentially cured that problem. Went from 3.5, 4 hours before ICE came in with a massive shortage of TSA agents, either quitting, calling in sick, etc., because they're not getting paid. Well, they've come in and rectified that situation in Atlanta. However, Houston's Intercontinental Airport still reporting 4-hour delays. 4 hours. Incredible. And on their website, they recommend arrive at the airport at least 4 hours in advance of your flight. This, of course, is the spring break travel gets in full swing. Meanwhile, U.S. Senator Chris Coons, isn't he a peach? He says Democrats have tried to fund TSA 7 times as airport lines grow longer, and Republicans have blocked us every single time. He says he doesn't want, Trump now says he doesn't want to fund TSA, quote, at all until we pass a completely unrelated bill to help Republicans win in November. By making sure that only American citizens vote. That's just how incredible the narrative is. These people don't want to pass the SAVE Act. They're leaning into the left wing of their base. I don't get it, since the requirement that someone be an American citizen to vote polls in the 80+% range, meaning lots of Democrats also believe that's just common sense guardrails to secure our elections. But not old Senator Coons. And I guess they feel like that this provides some degree of power in engendering to them. I don't know. That's the only thing I could come up with, because they keep balking at this. And the Republicans have offered, okay, why don't we just step in and fund everything but the deportation function of ICE, and they won't go for that either. Bottom line is they want ICE gone. And Hakeem Jeffries, what a tool that guy is. I got to tell you, when he's out with the fear-mongering messaging that, the ICE agents are going to go into the airports and they're going to start shooting people. Literally. I don't think I'm exaggerating that, am I, Rhino? You've seen his comments. He's literally making those statements, those kinds of radical fear-mongering assertions that you bring in the ICE agents into the airports, you're subject to being shot. Literally saying that. He's just a liar. Incredible. And, of course, has no concern for the traveling public. He's more concerned about ensuring that illegals receive and experience everything this country has to offer. Just so wrong. So wrong. Back to this issue with respect to the governor, the lieutenant governor, and what the lieutenant governor says is a mistake on the governor's part. I haven't seen any further statements from the governor on this. I know that the governor said that he actually thought that what occurred here could even rise to the level of being criminal. And that in his veto message, he said that this could be considered a criminal act. And the lieutenant governor referred to those comments as malicious and false. He says the lieutenant governor attacking and accusing a Senate staffer of committing a criminal act in a veto message is malicious, unnecessary, and false. The other thing that caught my attention, I heard Richard talking about it a little bit this morning as well, is this is a 12% interest rate that the state is extending these loans. That's the interest rate associated with these loans the state is extending to municipalities that would apply for these loans to fund the recovery efforts after the storm. Geez, why don't they just go to the bank and get 5 to 6%? So I'm not really sure where they came up with that, where the legislature came up with a 12% interest rate tag. I don't know. Seems unusual given the current interest rate environment. It seems a little pricey. Joey the trucker says he is most definitely a liar and a snake in the grass. Who are we talking about? Hakeem Jeffries, I assume, right, Joey? There's no doubt about it. He is just disgusting to stand in front of the American people and say, oh, be careful of these ICE agents in the airports. They're going to pull their guns out and start shooting. It's just insane and irresponsible and unconscionable, unforgivable, all the other. Jason Starkville, all Trump has to do is say he wants all the illegals to vote him into a third term. Paula Meridian, looks like a bill is going to the governor's desk that would allow people from other states to participate in Mississippi's medical marijuana program. That might be good for helping get our program funding. Yeah, I saw that as well, Paul. It could be. I'm worried about the industry. Haven't heard any official reports. I'm just concerned about the industry, and it's strictly eyeball observation. When I pass by these various dispensaries, I don't see any cars in the parking lot. Maybe it's just not the time of day when people make those purchases. And I haven't seen any data, so I don't have anything to back that up. But it does sound like that maybe there's some efforts here to allow the addressable market to expand a bit. John in Pontotoc says, with respect to the communiversity and the career technical and workforce education programs in our state, John says Germans were doing this in the 70s as far as letting them go to work in high school with the trades. I've read about that as well. Appreciate you saying that, John. And yeah, it totally makes sense. Completely makes sense. On the C Spire text line, if we don't think that this situation with the price of oil being elevated and inflation coming back into the picture won't affect the midterms, we are delusional. I completely agree with you. People have very short memories, and it's a what have you done for me lately world. There's no doubt about it. If the midterms roll around, the price of gas is elevated like it is today, there's no doubt that's going to be a problem. And I hope that all that is resolved long before then to get things back to normal so that people don't even remember it, because that does happen. And something else that occurred is that the Democrats flipped a Florida State House seat yesterday that in a district that by a considerable margin backed the president in 2024, also includes his Mar-a-Lago residents, interestingly enough. Now, some of the political pundits are calling this a harbinger for the midterms. I don't know. It's a state house seat, maybe. But it is interesting that a Democrat did defeat a Republican in this district. And this district is a big-time pro-Trump district. And this candidate also, the Republican, was publicly endorsed by the president. So that's a bit interesting as well. We're stepping aside for a break right now. Coming back in Columbus for the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau. It is Francis Glenn, the tourism director, up with us next. Stay with us.
Down by the river and down by the light, we'll be falling in love in the middle of the night, just moving slow. You and me going fishing in the dark, lying on our backs and counting the stars where the cool grass grows. Down by the river and down by the light, we'll be falling in love in the middle of the night, just moving.
At Fillmore Buick Jeep.
It's so awesome!
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. In Columbus, Mississippi, at the Columbus Marina for the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau, we're pleased to welcome now Frances Glenn, the Tourism Director. Frances, thanks for coming on. Tell us what in the world we got going on up here today. It's a bunch of stuff happening.
It's a bunch of stuff. So we are hosting Bassmaster Elite Tournament. Practice is Monday, Tuesday, and today. And then they start the tournament tomorrow, 7 a.m., right here at the Columbus Marina. There'll be 101 pro anglers.
Wow.
Heading out. They go out in flights, and then we'll have the weigh-ins at 3 p.m. Thursday through Sunday.
Very cool. Well, I noticed on the way in, several of the teams, their vehicles and all the apparatus that they carry around with them parked up the street here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the boat landing.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
they'll put
That's
in
the landing
there.
Itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah. But a bunch of them, all with the very professionally wrapped trucks and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's big time.
It's their job.
It's incredible. I mean, it really is. So you're obviously expecting a lot of people to descend upon the Columbus Lounge area here, huh?
Yeah, we hope so. Yeah, come out and watch. And the weigh-ins are real fun to watch. Saturday and Sunday we're going to have an expo. They bring in different vendors, and then we're going to have food trucks and kids' activities. We'll have face painting, jumpers, just a lot going on. Live music.
The weather looks great. The setting here is beautiful, isn't it?
And it really is.
Especially being up on the second floor where we are. Those of you that are tuning in, watching us on video, it's just a beautiful view. It really is. But water's very calm. Wind's not blowing real hard. And watching some of the big boats come by. And a barge that was pushing a giant crane just went by. How cool is that?
Yeah. That was from the Corps of Engineers.
Okay.
So they were doing a repair and then heading back.
That was really neat.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that hotels, the restaurants, the shops, they're all pretty excited about this.
We're real excited. Everybody is. Yeah.
Should be.
Yeah. We're expecting big crowds, and some of these guys have followings, and they were in Knoxville last weekend, and so they'll drive on down.
That's awesome. So a lot of people, I'm assuming, coming to the area, perhaps, Frances, that have never been here before, right?
Well,
first exposure.
We hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Is this the first time that the tournament's been held here?
So we held a Bassmaster Open last year, and that's open it was a qualifying for the Bassmaster Elite. So 2005, I believe, there was a top 50 Bassmaster event. Okay. This is only the second time the Elite's ever been to Columbus.
Wow.
Ever been to Mississippi.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so they were at Ross Barnett about 10 years ago.
So is there a competition for that to secure the tournament?
Well, we had to fill out a bid. We bid for the tournament. And we they reached out to us. Okay. Yeah, and asked if we would fill out an RFP, and we did, and we partnered with the city and the county and the Tenn-Tom Waterway Authority to get it here.
Well, I'm assuming, looking at the waters here and the setting, that it's a pretty target-rich environment for the bass, huh?
Well, I think it's going to be a challenging fishery, with the commercial. Yeah. And then they can lock south and north. Okay. So it'll give them a big venue to fish.
I got it. That's pretty neat. And these folks, this is what they do. They travel around professionally doing this.
It's their job.
It's incredible, man. Go out there and fish.
Yes, yeah. And so the winner of this tournament, it's a $100,000 pot.
I was about to ask you that. You read my mind. $100,000 pot. Mm-hmm. Wow.
It's all in a day's work.
But then in looking at all the trucks up at the boat landing with the boat trailers and so forth, lots of sponsors. Right.
Yeah.
That's
lots
really
of
what
sponsors.
it's all about.
Yeah. The trucks are wrapped. The boats are wrapped.
Sure. Isn't that cool?
They wear them.
Oh, yeah. They're just walking advertisements.
They are.
Fishing advertisements.
And of course, we want people to come out and watch, but the event, it'll be on Fox Sports cool. Saturday and Fox 1 Saturday morning and Sunday.
Okay. Well, that's just super cool. And my son's big. I'm not, but my son is huge into all this, and he loves all this stuff. It's big time.
It is.
And it's big in Mississippi.
It is.
And it's a big industry on top of that.
Oh, definitely.
And having the tournaments tour around like this, generates lots of economic activity.
It does.
Really
it
good.
Does.
So, well, congratulations for you guys landing this thing and bringing these people in from all over the place. I know it's going to be great for the area.
Yeah, I think so.
Man, that is just so awesome. But I was so impressed, blown away when I drove by the boat landing, which is just down the street here, of course, and saw all those professionally wrapped vehicles. I mean, it's something. It really is. It's big time. It's a great sport, and the people that do it, they're serious about it. I know that, and they're really good.
Yeah.
And they speak a different language to a great
It is. I'm learning a lot.
Francis Glenn, Tourism Director, Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau, has been our guest. Tell us the name of the tournament again, the Bassmasters Elite. Got it. Yep. Appreciate that. Yep. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yep. We're coming right back after Fox News and SuperTalk News once again from Columbus, Mississippi at the Columbus Marina for the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau. Stay with us.
Of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Middays from Columbus, Mississippi at the Columbus Marina. A beautiful setting here for the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau. The Bassmasters Elite Tournament scheduled to get underway over the weekend. Going to be practicing and then official competition, weigh-in and so forth. It's a big deal, man. And congratulations to Columbus, the state of Mississippi, for hosting this giant event. And Rhino, there's a bunch of people around this marina area that are setting up all sorts of apparatus for this deal. Big stage where they'll do the weigh-in and I'm sure present the prizes. Really neat. It's kind of a, you know, in my personal edification through golf, it kind of reminds me of the PGA Tour. It's touring bass tournaments, what it is. And they go to these various venues, set up, and it's a whole production, honestly. Really neat. The House conservatives are not happy about a potential DHS funding deal that was negotiated by the president and Senate Republicans. And they're balking at this. The president, of course, demanding that the Save America Act, that's just the bill that would require voter ID, proof of citizenship when registering, be attached to any DHS funding bill. But on Monday night, Republican senators convinced him to ditch that idea. What they're talking about now is bringing this bill through the reconciliation process, which means it could pass with a simple majority and not requiring any Senate Democrats vote to pass. And the idea I heard when I started thinking, well, how are you going to do that? Because there's no budget involved in this. So what they're considering is funding the state's efforts and expense to administer provisions of the SAVE Act at the state level. Turn it into a budget bill, essentially, by sending money to the states. You do it. So I'm not sure how that's terribly different than the way the bill is currently drafted. Seems like it's a long shot that the parliamentarian in the Senate would approve this for passage under the reconciliation process, which would only require simple majority. That should go through easily with the balance of power in the Senate. But at this point, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But the House Freedom Caucus accused the Senate, I should say, the Republicans in the Senate, of engaging in failure theater failure theater by planning to end the ongoing debate of the SAVE Act and pushing it through the reconciliation process. They want the Senate Republicans right now, since the SAVE Act is sitting in the Senate, the House Freedom Caucus wants them to force a talking filibuster and allow Democrats to offer an unlimited number of stupid amendments that would get them on the record for this. So I don't know where all this is going, but clearly there's contention between the House and the Senate. Who does that remind you of, Rhino? The U.S. House and Senate are sideways. That kind of sounds like what we got going on in Jackson. So we'll see where this goes, but that's the couple of big things going on at the federal level. Back to this situation here at home, the SHIELD Act, which is, again, a state version, if you will, of the SAVE Act at the federal level, that has been sent to the governor. And if I'm not mistaken, did I just get a notification that he promptly signed it? Rhino, I could have seen something else. But I don't think there will be any holdup on the governor's part for signing onto this legislation. And it just quite simply would require that anyone who registers to vote, their information is entered in the federal SAVE database, the Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements. That's what it stands for. And that's what it traditionally has been used for, is just verify legal immigration status to be eligible for various federal benefits. So the state version, the Safeguard Honest Integrity in Elections for Lasting Democracy, the SHIELD Act, it too proposes to use the federal database that tracks citizenship status. So whenever someone applies to vote in Mississippi, that information would be researched against the federal SAVE database to ensure they're legitimately American citizens. And if it comes back and says, hey, look, you don't appear in the database as a bona fide American citizen, at that point they just have to bring in the various necessary documents to prove that they are in fact a citizen, if they are. Otherwise, their registration is denied to vote. And then the other critical piece of this legislation is that the Secretary of State would be required to compare the voter rolls in the state of Mississippi with the SAVE database, and if any voter is flagged as showing up illegal or not a citizen, I should say, in the federal SAVE database, Secretary of State is required to provide a report to the legislature of all of those incidents with details, and then take action with respect to the voter rolls. So the state has a responsibility to ensure that elections are fair. Now, I'm not convinced that on first pass of running this process to be developed that would compare and contrast information in the state's database with the federal citizenship database. I don't know that we're going to find a lot of illegals that are voted in the state of Mississippi. I personally don't believe that we will, but it doesn't matter. The whole point of this is to instill confidence in the public that our voter rolls are clean and that they are free from illegals registered in the state of Mississippi. That is the goal, is just to, again, project that confidence and that knowledge that our voter rolls are pristine and only contain those who are actual American citizens. Also did see that it has been upgraded. This came up yesterday, and I did a little research after the show yesterday. The question came up, can it also check to see if anyone's deceased? And so it has been upgraded, by the way, with the ability to reach out and check the I think it's DHS, if I'm not mistaken, that maintains that data and ensure that, someone is deceased should not be on the voter rolls. I do think we'll see a lot of that in the state of Mississippi, because I do think that the voting registrars in the state and the elections commissioners haven't been timely in proactively removing deceased people from our voter rolls. So hopefully this will also clean that up. And the risk there is that someone shows up with a ballot and they claim to be somebody, and there's some problem and breakdown in the verification of that person's identity, and it just opens the door for something bad to happen and some sort of voter fraud to be committed. I don't think it's widespread. I do, however, think we're going to find lots of deceased people on the voter rolls in Mississippi when we first set out to run this program that will compare and contrast to the federal SAVE database. Should be interesting.
Looks like that one hasn't been sent to the governor's desk just yet. The latest update is that it was brought up in the Senate for discussion earlier this morning, like literally 30 minutes ago, and then a motion to reconsider was tabled.
Oh, okay. So where did I get the information, though, that the Senate had actually passed the legislation, which...
I mean, it concurred with the House amendments.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. All right. So still a little bit more of the process to undergo. I think that's the point before it gets up to the
because the motion
governor.
to consider was entered yesterday, so it was brought up for discussion, and then the motion to reconsider was tabled today.
Okay. Well, that should pave the way then, right? So to move it on through.
It should be headed that way. It just hasn't been transmitted yet.
Okay. Well, thanks. Yeah. All right, great. Thanks for clarifying that for us, because that's important. But I feel like this is imminent. I really do, that this SHIELD Act's going to go through. And there people are already balking about how this is going to disenfranchise voters and those who would like to vote because they just don't want to go through the trouble of bringing in their birth certificate when they first register. If you're already registered and on the rolls, no action necessary. We got to make that point. No action unless when they run your name against the SAVE database, it shows that you're not a citizen. You're going to get notified by the Secretary of State, and all you got to do is clear that up and you're good to go. I don't think you're going to see a lot of that, honestly. Coming right back. Stay with us.
From the
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go. This is huge news. Huge news.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio in Columbus, Mississippi at the Columbus Marina. We're here for the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau because they're going to be hosting the big Bassmasters Elite Tournament this weekend. And that is a big event. And a lot of folks are going to be descending upon the Golden Triangle here to enjoy that. While we were talking about the SHIELD Act before we went to break, that is the measure in the state of Mississippi authored by Senator Jeremy England that would impose some rules, some procedures to ensure that only American citizens are listed on the voter rolls in the statewide election management system in the state of Mississippi. It essentially is really a microcosm of what the federal SAVE Act would do, except it would apply to our situation here at home in Mississippi. You register to vote, you got to prove you're a citizen. You got to bring documents proving you're a citizen. If there's a change in your status, if you move to another district, you got to go through the process again. And if you and so any change, you want to change your name because you got married, just bring in your marriage certificate, prove you're who you are, you're good to go. All that will be outlined, I'm quite sure, by the Secretary of State as this bill becomes law and ultimately is codified as statute. And then would require the Secretary of State on an annual basis to scrub the voter rolls, analyze those against the federal SAVE database, which tracks citizenship status for over 100 million individuals, I believe, in that database. And anyone who is flagged as not a citizen as part of that process would be recorded by the Secretary of State in a report containing other incidences, and that would be presented to the Mississippi legislature on an annual basis. So they are informed of to such activity. The person would be removed from the rolls and would be notified. No big deal. If it's a mistake, you just come in and prove you're a citizen, you're good to go. I don't think you're going to find hardly any mistakes, honestly, and I don't think you're going to find a lot of illegals. But I just say again, this is a confidence builder. This just ensures that we don't have any tomfoolery going on. If for some reason, for some nefarious purpose, such as swinging an election, a candidate, a group, an individual, it doesn't really matter. Parties decided that, oh, yeah, we can just go round up a bunch of illegals and get them voted and then get them registered and then get them to the polls to vote. We could sway an election. We don't want that, obviously. So this is a strong deterrent to any sort of future malfeasance as that is concerned. Now, the president, is not a fan of mail-in voting. He has indicated that he could live with some exceptions for that. If you're traveling because of work, you're infirmed, you're military, he supports their ability, in those scenarios, their ability to vote by mail. However, it's interesting, the president just voted by mail. He voted in Florida's recently held special election. His residence is within that district. And he actually, it turns out, he voted by mail in Palm Beach County. That's home to his Mar-a-Lago club. He's been registered there to vote since 2019. He mailed his ballot in at least one other time, that in 2020. So that's kind of interesting. I don't find that to be any much of a big deal. And honestly, as I've said so many times before, I don't think there's great risk in a fairly tight mail-in voting process, such as what we have in Mississippi, such as what they have in Florida. It's when you get to these 10 states where they mail ballots out in bulk to everyone who's listed in these erroneous voter rolls, and they end up in the wrong hands, and they get completed and then dropped in bulk and counted in the election. That's where there's a problem. It's the mass mail-in voting. All mail-in elections is a huge problem and opens up the door significantly for impropriety around elections and voting. So that's what needs to stop, and that's what the president is also wanting to do. Mo says, Mom passed in 2010 and Dad in 2020. I kept an eye on the voter rolls, and they both were removed before the next election. Well, that's good. Good to hear, Mose, and that's good that the election commissioner was on top of that and saw fit to do that. It just opens up the door. Don't take that risk. It's probably not, in general, a big deal, but let's don't risk it. Let's just make sure the voter rolls are clean and that only legitimate registered voters, people who live in the district, are contained on the voter rolls, period. That's simple. Kirk from Columbus. If the voter rolls are cleaned up, could that possibly affect the districts and who represents those districts? It just depends on what we find as part of that scrubbing process. Again, in the state of Mississippi, I honestly don't expect a lot. I think you also have to consider the fact that illegals, truly illegals, they don't want to call attention to themselves. And so showing up to register to vote does call attention to yourself, whether you like it or not. And especially if you're already paranoid about the fact that you're in the country illegally and you're going to sign up to vote, you got to be worried about that. So I don't think that happens a lot. Where there are problems are in states that have these very robust interfaces between state in government, I should say, transactions and voting. What I mean is that there's some states that as part of your, let's say, registering or receiving a driver's license, if you're paying state bills, your property taxes, as an example, a ticket, anything like that, government related, in some states you're automatically sent into the voter rolls to register to vote. And we all know that a lot of people that interact with government in just normal business type or personal activity, they're not all American citizens. And that causes problems. Now, I think a lot of them are out there and don't even know. I'm not convinced they're necessarily voting, but they're on the rolls. How they get a tag, says John in Pontotoc. I'm not following you, John. Let me know. Oh, wow. Somebody can't spell, Rhino.
Is that all that's surprising, considering their opinion?
Not. Oh, what does it mean we're two-sided? What does that mean, two-sided? I think we've been fairly consistent on this issue, in this matter. Where have we departed from that? I don't believe so.
You're honestly expecting someone with Trump derangement syndrome to follow any kind of logic?
And what Rhino's referring to, I'm not going to describe it, but it's a stupid meme of Trump that's just dumb. So thanks for communicating with us today, though. See ya. How do they get a tag? John, driver's license, I think, is maybe what you're talking about. In some states, illegals are eligible to drive. We've already seen the problems that's caused. And so as part of the process of obtaining a driver's license in some states, you know what I'm talking about here, Rhino. You're automatically shoved into the voting database, right? That's the way that stuff works in some states. And I don't have a list in front of me of all the states that do that. But the idea was to try to get more people registered to vote so they don't have to go through the hassle of going to whatever office in any particular state you got to go to register. But you see how it opens up the doors for people who shouldn't be on the voter rolls, especially in a state like California, for example. Think about the triple whammy there, where they let illegals obtain driver's licenses. They no doubt also interface with their voter rolls and register them to vote. And then they do mail-in balloting, mail-in elections. So it just opens up the door for all kinds of inaccuracies. I'll just leave it at that. Let's see here. What else we got? What do you say here, Thomas? I think I'll go to my hometown this November on Election Day and see if I'm still on the roll since I moved away 26 years ago. Might be. And that is a problem because, like I've said so many times, I think most people don't really put on their list as they're moving from one residence to another, call the circuit clerk and remove my name from the voter rolls. I don't think that happens much. And the same thing is a huge problem in Medicaid, and I've talked about that before, where the third parties who manage Medicaid, they do so based on the number that are enrolled in the system. And people that are enrolled are automatically re-enrolled. They go through kind of a vetting process, and they go to another state and they get enrolled over there, and we pay twice. Coming right back. Stay with us.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
She's real fine, my 409. She's real fine, my 409, my 409. Well, I saved my pennies and I
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays, the Element Wealth Studio at the Columbus, Mississippi Marina for the Columbus Lounge Visitors Bureau. They've got the big Bassmasters Elite Tournament scheduled for this weekend. The weather looks fantastic for that, and a bunch of people here in the Columbus Lounge area for that. It's a big economic shot in the arm for the Golden Triangle. Congratulations to them. Also, congratulations for our good friend, Mississippi State Health Officer, Dan Edney. Turns out that he is on the short list to serve as the new director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I'm going to go ahead and vouch for Dr. Edney and put my vote in for what that's worth, which is probably nothing. But I think Dr. Edney would serve this nation well in that role, and it would be an honor for him and, of course, the great state of Mississippi. Former Kentucky Governor Ernie Fletcher, Johns Hopkins cardiologist Joseph Marine also on the list. Dr. Dan Edney, the state of Mississippi health officer, one of 3 names that's being floated by the Trump administration. They cannot go wrong with selecting Dr. Edney for this role. I'm going to hope and pray for that. I think he would be fantastic in that role for sure. I did look up on the break there. It's more states than I thought. What I can see here, Rhino, is 24 states have automatic voting registration when you interact with various government agencies. 24 states. And there is an opt-out that is available, but 24 states automatically. Just looking across the South, the only one I see in the South is Georgia that utilizes this process. Looking across the southern tier of states, Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Texas, Florida do not. Georgia, the lone one. Of course, up the eastern seaboard, you can imagine they all do. Across the Midwest, and, of course, the West Coast, including Hawaii. Utah, Arizona do not. Colorado, New Mexico do. Automatic. Interesting. So, yeah, I think that is problematic. I think there's a lot of sloppy work that goes on in that. And again, they're all balking at the prospect of, the Democrats are at least, at the prospect of having to compare their voter rolls with the federal SAVE database to ensure that everyone that is stored in their voter rolls, listed as an eligible voter, is in fact a citizen and not deceased on top of that. And they're balking at this. You know, I think I said it yesterday, and you kind of poo-pooed on it. You didn't think they'd go for it. But I still say, why don't we just get them in a room and say, hey, guys, why don't we just run the program, see what happens? Let's just run the process, see what it uncovers. Because you're telling us it doesn't exist. You should be willing to allow such a procedure, an electronic procedure, to proceed. And let's see what happens. But they won't even do that. What was your rationale for that yesterday, Rhino? Why you didn't think they would be on board with that?
Because then the federal government under Trump would have a list of every illegal in their state.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And as Hakeem Jeffries would say, they'll come out and shoot you, right? It was just insane. One of the things the Democrats are balking at, of course, is allowing ICE to continue to mask their faces while doing their job. They want the masks off. And they're pushing back on that, won't sign off on any funding deal without that reform. And, you know, I'd say to the Democrats, well, we could probably do that if you tell your loony supporters to stand down and not go around obtaining these folks' identities and then voxing them and revealing their addresses. And the next thing you know, you got just a person that's working for ICE, not a celebrity by any stretch of the imagination, wakes up one day and there's 100 people outside their dang front door at their house harassing them. That's the problem, Democrats. And you foment that sort of behavior. Jeez.
It's because the Democrats don't actually have to go to work or do anything. They can just waste their worthless lives while you, the taxpayer, fund it.
It's pathetic. It truly is. Truly is pathetic. Our news department, by the way, has a nice piece about State Health Officer Dan Edney being on the short list there for CDC Director. Appreciate the news department for reporting that. I was talking earlier about the truckers are starting to feel the pain of $5 diesel, and they're saying this is soon going to be felt across the entire economy. Wall Street Journal had a great piece on that today, and there were some interviews in the Wall Street Journal with some of these truckers and the pain that this is causing for them. So, man, I sure do hope we get some resolution to this deal quick. The president is not going to stop pursuing these military activities until he is convinced that Iran has totally, legitimately, truthfully abandoned their nuclear ambitions. He also said their Navy and Air Force must be eliminated, that their intermediate range ballistic missile capability has got to be completely neutralized and eliminated, and he's got to be confident that all the nations in the region are safe from these lunatics that don't have a problem launching missiles their way. They're still attacking Israel. They're still trading attacks with Israel as we speak.
To the point that Volkswagen, of all people, has now signed up with the Israelis to change over one of their car manufacturing plants into manufacturing missiles for the Iron Dome.
Oh, my gosh.
That was announced yesterday.
Okay. It would be something similar to a move we'd see in this country under the Defense Production Act, right? That would be the results of such an order. It sounds like that Volkswagen's maybe doing this voluntarily, or do you think the government? Okay. Well, that's awesome. Interesting. Wow. Also here in the States, something Senator Daniel Sparks talked about last time he was on the program, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act enacted into law by the President last July 4th, 2025, also known now as the Working Families Tax Cuts Act, contains a provision that would require that states absorb a significant amount of the cost associated with the errors made in the issuance of SNAP benefits, of food stamps benefits, and would be the first time that a state has ever been required to actually pick up some of the cost of the benefits. Now, under current law, before the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the state was responsible for picking up 25% of the administrative costs, not the benefits themselves, just the personnel and the systems and other tools and assets necessary just to administer the program. And the federal government picked up 75% of that. But now that's 50-50 after the One Big Beautiful Bill Act passed. That's certainly some money, but not compared to this punishment, if you will, based on the error rate. And there are three different ranges of error rates, and each one of them has associated with it a percentage of benefits that the state government would have to pick up. Well, in the state of Mississippi, our error rate sits at 10.69%. That's slightly below the national average, but that's at the highest level of the three ranges. It's within that range where Mississippi would be on the hook for about $120 million if we don't get this fixed. And it's not being fixed right now. There's a measure that would sort of change the way that recipients report and authenticate their status and eligibility. SNAP benefits are only available to those whose income's below a certain level. It honestly originally was when you're between jobs, you've been laid off, you've been terminated, you're looking for work, you need to eat. Here's some temporary assistance for that. By the way, the TANF program, which actually bears the name temporary assistance, the words, same deal there. This was you're between jobs or some other extenuating circumstances, perhaps medical emergency, costly or something, and that's the purpose of that program. it's not supposed to be lifetime food stamps. That wasn't the idea. But Daniel Sparks, the senator from Belmont, has a measure that would address this issue in the state of Mississippi to reduce our error rate. But as it stands right now, we're going to be on the hook to send the federal government 120 million simoleons. I got to tell you, the tab is getting bigger and deeper. We got this. We got PERS. We got teacher pay raises. We got Medicaid. It's real money, guys. And I don't know if we got enough revenue to cover it. We've just pretty much chipped away at the entire surplus. More than that right there. Coming right back. Stay with us.
Poly-Up of Mississippi. Bring the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays, the Element Well Studio in Columbus, Mississippi today at the Columbus Marina for the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau. They've got the big Bassmasters Elite Tournament coming to town, and what a big deal that's going to be. But right now, it's Chuck Yarborough, 2019 Organization of American Historians Teacher of the Year and Director, Tales from the Crypt, 8th of May Emancipation Celebration, and more story projects. The Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science, and Dietrich Hexpeth, Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science Junior from Caledonia, Mississippi. All right, Chuck, Dietrich, appreciate you guys coming on.
Oh, we're happy to be here.
So that the Mississippi School of Mathematics and Science, and you and I have talked about this before, what a bright spot that is for the state of Mississippi. Tremendous asset.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, one of our graduates, Commander Desmond Walker, who just won the Admiral James Stockdale Leadership Award for the United States Navy this last year, he calls MSMS a leadership incubator for our community, state, and nation. It's the best place on the planet to teach.
All right, Dietrich, you're a junior right now, and you guys were telling me before we came live on the air here, you've done some research with respect to World War II.
Yes, my research subject was Frank Edward Perkins Jr., and I'm going to be portraying him as a performer in Tales of the Crypt.
Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah. So what were you telling me about the B-24 Liberator aircraft? Yeah. Big old thing.
So he was a waist gunner on the B-24D Liberator. Yeah. His job was to protect the bomber's vulnerable sides with a .50 caliber Browning machine gun.
Yeah, and sitting ducks, too.
Yeah. We're in a very enclosed position with, like, direct winds and very thin metal that bullets could just go straight through.
I got you. So are you a history buff?
Not until this.
Okay.
All my classes before this in Caledonia, it was like a coach, and I didn't really... I mean, I learned, but I didn't really take it in as much as I did here.
I got you. What subjects do you enjoy?
I enjoy physics the most out of everything. And math.
Okay. Naturally. So have you thought about a career?
Yeah. I want to go to the Air Force Academy
awesome.
To be a pilot, and maybe eventually go on to a test pilot and then astronaut. I'm just going to shoot that far and see where I land.
I know you know this, and probably a lot of our audience does, but just in case, pilots actually have to be very smart. You've got to be cerebral and physical.
That's right.
You've got to be all the above. That is hard work. And those are some really sharp dudes to do that.
My dad was the chief instructor at the Air Force Base for Columbus.
Okay.
For the T-38s, and I've got to do some red carpet sims with him where I got to fly the plane in a simulator before.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
So, Chuck, what can you tell us about the important stuff going on at the Mississippi School for Math and Science these days?
Well, in my classes and for Dietrich, the most important thing going on is Tales from the Crypt. It's a year-long research and performance project that turns into a community service, and we'll get about 1,000 people to come through on the evenings of April 8th, 10th, 15th, and 17th this year in guided tours by candlelight in Friendship Cemetery. But, you know, we have students from all over the state, talented kids who are headed off to contribute wherever they can contribute, and many of them returning to Mississippi.
Wow.
So I'm particularly proud. This senior class, we have one going to West Point, 3 appointments to the Naval Academy right now.
Man.
And so it's a pretty exciting place to go.
So is there a connection, Chuck, with the Air Force Base? I mean, is there some interaction?
Well, we partner with all of the local partners occasionally. Air Force Base, Airbus, the PACCAR plant in Lowndes County. Yeah. So we have a lot of students who are interested in STEM fields. About 40% of our graduates will pursue something more humanities-based when they go to college.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we were preparing kids to be leaders in their communities. And we have this crazy number of doctors in Mississippi that came through MSMS.
It's unbelievable.
There right now,
desperately
there are 9.
Needed too.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Nine students at UMMC. Medical school who are MSMS graduates.
Wow. So Dietrich, you're from Caledonia, so you're not far. But have you met some folks you've become friends with? They're from other corners of the state.
Oh yeah, all the way down to the coast, all the way up to the top of Mississippi. I've met a lot of new friends. This place is wonderful. To me, it feels like college, except we're like minors, so there's a little more restriction, but it's pretty wonderful.
Understandably so.
Yeah.
But that's the idea, right? Mm-hmm. That's the goal, is to pretty much simulate a college environment.
I've heard people who leave here, it's like when they go to college, it's like a breeze in there. It's easy compared to what they had to do here.
I don't doubt that whatsoever. I've always thought the most important part about higher education is learning how to learn.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
Well, before I came to MSMS, I never really had to study or do any, prepare for any tests. I would hear it the first time and learn it. MSMS, I had to really learn how to study and do my homework and prepare myself.
That'll serve you well, not only in your educational endeavors, but in your professional work as well.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate you guys coming on, Dietrich and Chuck from the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us,
guys. We're coming right back after Fox News and SuperTalk News. Once again, we're in Columbus at the Marina for the Columbus Lowndes Convention and Visitors Bureau. Stay with us.
And who shall wear the robe and crown, good Lord, show me the way.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well Studio at the Columbus Marina in Columbus, Mississippi. A beautiful setting we have here. We're here for the Columbus Convention and Visitors Bureau Big Bassmasters Elite Tournament. Hour 3 of the program on this
Hump Day.
We are bringing it to you, baby. Hump Day, moving right through the last week of March. Man, hard to believe. Them legislators down there trying to work out some deals in Jackson. Not a whole lot of legislation remaining, honestly. But what we do have going on, of course, is conference weekend coming up this weekend. If anything makes it to conference, right, Rhino, at this point. So there's been some invitations extended to join in conference. But at this point, I'm not sure. A couple of things that certainly are high profile right now happening in the Mississippi legislature is alcohol. That's still a big problem because the ABC warehouse still running at half strength. It's not even half strength. Maybe it's like 10% strength. Huge backlog of shipments of alcohol to Mississippi's retail packaged liquor stores, restaurants, lounges, those who have liquor licenses to sell alcohol. And at this point, the system, the ABC warehouse, still crippled. Representative Hank Zuber texting with me this morning. He has, of course, offered legislation that would allow these retailers to procure alcohol from suppliers outside of the state. Right now, in accordance with state law, all alcohol must be purchased from the alcohol beverage control distribution facility. But this law would allow them to purchase from suppliers out of state. Now, I did just share with him a couple of concerns about that. First of all, I support it. I feel really bad about the fact that these retailers who rely on the ABC warehouse to procure inventory that they sell in their businesses to make a living is severely constrained, can't get the product. They got customers, they got consumers who want to buy, but they can't get it to sell to them. So that's a problem. A couple of things, though. I know that many people, including me, would like to see the state get out of the alcohol distribution business. It's a financial issue, though. The state, because it owns and operates a distribution function, it generates about $60 million a year of revenue that goes to the general fund. That's essentially the profit. There's a statutory 27.5% markup, and that's the profit. If we privatize that, the private distributors would retain that profit. They're not going to, out of the goodness of their heart, share that with the state. I don't blame them. And then you got the issue of taxes. There are taxes levied on those products as they pass through the warehouse and are shipped out to retailers, restaurants, lounges, those with licenses to sell alcoholic beverages. And if we were to shift all that function, transfer it to suppliers out of state, first, I think somebody ought to find out from the packaged liquor stores, the restaurants, or maybe even these prospective suppliers directly, are you even interested in selling to in much smaller volume the various packaged liquor stores and other outlets across the state? I'm not sure they are. That it is feasible for them to do that, certainly at a price point that would allow the packaged liquor stores and those who sell prepared open alcohol in restaurants, lounges, and so forth, to sell it at a price point that consumers will buy. So that's an issue. And then there's the issue of taxes. Do they want to establish tax nexus with the state of Mississippi, collect taxes to replace the taxes that are currently collected by ABC and remit those to the state? I just encourage Representative Zuber and others to do a little research there. It may all be fine, but it just makes sense from a business perspective to check those boxes and ensure that, hey, before we pass this law, that this thing's actually viable, that there's interest in converting to this distribution scenario. So we shall say that's going on. Then the other one we've been talking about quite a bit on the program the last few days is PBM. Man, oh man. Pharmacy benefit manager reforms. And that is complicated, to say the least. And we have conflicting views. We've got the independent pharmacists who want to see the version as amended by the Senate, which inserted an $11.29 prescription filling fee, dispensing fee. They want to see that bill become law. They're encouraging the state house to concur with that legislation as amended, which would transmit it to the governor for his signature to become law. On the other hand, you got the business community, especially those that are represented by the Mississippi Business Alliance. They are recommending that the House not concur with the Senate bill and rather pass the original House bill that did not have that dispensing fee. And I want to make sure I get this right here, Rhino, but I believe it's the contention of the independent pharmacists that the dispensing fee would just get absorbed somewhere else, right, in the supply chain.
Yeah.
That would not be passed on. It's like you buy a $4 prescription, for example, boom, here's $11.29 added onto it to cover the dispensing fee to the patient consumer. And then you've got the business community who says, looks like it is. That is going to be the case. And we've done some calculations on what you guys want in that Senate bill, and it's going to cause our insurance premiums to go up. And that means more expense on our part, but also on the part of our employees. So you got the business folks that are saying the reforms you guys want are going to cost us more money. You got the independent pharmacists saying, no, it won't. And by the way, if you don't pass it this way, we're not sure how many of us are going to survive the next 2 years, I think is the time frame they're using. So it's a big mess, and it's super complicated and convoluted, and I want the state to make the right decision. I really do feel for the legislators in this situation, because I'm not sure they have all the information necessary. And if they do, if it's concrete and definitive and comprehensible to make the correct decision, vote for the Senate bill as amended, scrap that, go back to the House bill, or don't vote for any of it. It's hard to tell at this point. But that's something that's happening right now that is going to come to a head in the next couple of days, and there's going to be a resolution one way or another on that legislation. And we can't overlook the fact that we're hammering out a budget. I'm optimistic, and the word I'm hearing from legislators is we're in pretty good shape there. The state of Mississippi will get a budget done during the regular session. Will not necessitate a special session as it did last year. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that I'm concerned about our budget. I'm concerned about the funding of it, spending increases. The other big issue out there, I guess I should also add to the list, is the teacher pay raise, where we have, again, opposing bills on that, the Senate's version, the House's version, and then something with respect to the public employees retirement system. So I believe the House's version actually has some additional funding in its teacher pay raise bill for that purpose. The Senate did not, has a separate measure to handle that. So I guess to kind of summarize it, you got the PBM issue, you got the ABC, the alcoholic beverage distribution problem issue, you got PERS, you got the SNAP benefits, potential additional cost the state's going to have to bear. You got the teacher pay raise. All those are still high-profile measures that are on the table now that the SHIELD Act looks like it's probably going to be okay. That is just designed to make sure illegals aren't on Mississippi's voter rolls, a no-brainer there. But that's what the legislature, I think, is currently focused on. Then, of course, the bigger picture of the budget. And I'm anxious to see what that looks like, because if all these other measures go through, they're going to have to find some money from somewhere. It's the way it works out. There's not enough money, I don't think, flowing through the Treasury to cover the current budget plus all these additions. We're going to step aside.
We couldn't use mobile sports betting.
Isn't that crazy? Coming right back. Stay with us.
Before you're here,
interrupt this program. Gerard Gibert. Here we go.
This is huge news. Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Let me run with you tonight. I'll take you on a moonlight ride.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio that has been relocated to Columbus, Mississippi at the Columbus Marina today. We're pleased to be here for the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau. They're hosting the big Bassmasters Elite Tournament up here. That is a big deal, and a bunch of people are all over this place getting ready for that big event. So congratulations to Columbus, the Golden Triangle, for serving as the host. That is certainly something to be proud of, and I know we'll be well received here. The folks will be treated well, and they'll produce a little economic activity as well that will be injected into the region. So that is fantastic. On the C Spire text line, Leslie in Grenada says, "Come on, Gerard, you didn't compliment that opener bumper music. That was the GOAT, CCR." Yeah, only because I had a guest in a short segment, Leslie, but I promise I was thinking about it. And that Born on the Bayou, of course, is what Rhino played for us. The iconic beginning there, just kind of sitting on the strings on the guitar. By the way, Leslie, the house band plays that. And I got to say, we're pretty good at that one. And it is one of my favorites to play on the drums. I love playing CCR drums. It just kind of suits me. Very solid sound, technique. And our lead guitarist can absolutely emulate that open pretty dang good. Representative Steve Lott, he was on the program Monday of this week. And, in fact, I'm headed straight to practice after the show today, traveling back south to Jackson, and we're scheduled to get in a little practice as we get ready for some gigs later on this year. But I heard it, Leslie, and appreciate you pointing that out. It is a great tune, and they, of course, were a great band as well. So thanks for that. Let's see what else we got going on here. These anti-data center people are still out there raising hell, and they're so misinformed. It's incredible. I mean, you would think that data centers are consuming every drop of water on the planet. Little do they know the truth. Little, I should say, know the truth, which is that data centers currently consume about 0.2% of all the water consumed in this country. Golf courses consume considerably more. Guess what else does? Flushing your toilets. That equates to about 250 queries in Chat GPT. I don't know why they keep harping on this with misinformation. It's one thing to address concerns, legitimate concerns, and there are legitimate. This is new. This is novel. It's big. I get it. But it's also possible for us to meet the need to continue to build out our artificial intelligence and cloud services footprint so desperately needed to maintain superiority in those realms, not only for our security, our national security, but our economic viability. It's essential. We can do that and also be good stewards of the environment and ensure that consumers don't bear the costs, any cost associated with data centers consuming electricity or water or the like. And this idea that we're taking up all the farmland, Rhino, that's just ludicrous. Like, should we just stop all construction and building of anything and everything right now? Just end it because we're using land? What does that accomplish? That's going backwards. I don't get it. And I just feel like people are just really not dealing with facts, not informed. And
it's a perfect
it's a
example of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Explain.
The Dunning-Kruger effect was, what is the name for it? Cognitive bias. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yes.
It's a cognitive bias that was identified in the late 90s. I think actually we talked about this one day. You were out with Dave. There was a man in the 90s, I think it was 95. He decided he was going to rob a bank. And because he wanted to get away with it, he spread lemon juice all over his face under the assumption that it would hide his identity from the security cameras because lemon juice can be used as invisible ink. So he thought the lemon juice would make him invisible. And he even checked it. He tested himself. He put lemon juice on his face and got it in his eye. And when he took the picture with the Polaroid to test it, because he had lemon juice in his eye, he actually took a picture of the ceiling, so he was convinced that lemon juice made him invisible to cameras. Well, he got caught. The images went all over the news, and it became this whole story of this stupid guy that thought he was a genius because he would spread lemon juice on his face to hide from security cameras. Well, 2 psychologists, Dunning and Kruger, studied it and found that individuals with limited knowledge or competence in a field or a domain supremely overestimate their own proficiency in that field or domain.
That's a good way to put it. They, in other words, they're not as smart as they think they are. Well, you know, I've said it many times. Truly smart people know their limitations, and dumb people think they know everything. It's just incredible. It's the polar opposite of what you would expect it to be. Incredible. I'm done with it. I've read all the stuff. They're showing up at all these meetings. Oh, my gosh. It's like, okay, well, why do you keep getting on the Internet and using data centers to make your protest, to make your point? Do you think they don't know that? It's just crazy to me. And then what they really don't understand is when they publish these long-winded videos, that, of course, consumes even more of the footprint. That takes more power, more water, more storage, more data centers. Unbelievable.
But you got to remember, they're getting the vast majority of their talking points from people that show up to protest oil while wearing petroleum products.
Unbelievable. That's incredible. These are just idiots. That's all I can say. Look, anything that's new like this is you don't understand. I appreciate the concerns, really do, and want to work with you on that and help you understand. But you can't just be so obstinate about it and so closed-minded about it. You're getting nowhere. And hostile about it as well. And again, if you stop, like I said, if you stop, I don't know, eating, driving, flying, using health care, wearing clothes, am I leaving anything out? Just the bare necessities of life? All of those use data centers and artificial intelligence. I don't think they get that. That it's key to everything we consume. It's embedded in every aspect of our life. We could certainly reverse all that. We'd all be poor and hungry. Unbelievable. The United States Treasury, by the way, just declared that the United States is insolvent. The media is not talking about this, but the numbers are right there. And it really has to do with what is being reported as our assets versus our liabilities. $6 trillion in assets, $47 trillion in liabilities. And they're not talking about this. By the way, the $47 trillion in liabilities does not include the unfunded obligations of Social Security and Medicare. Those are ballooning significantly. The federal debt interest now payable as part of this $2 trillion deficit we run every year. It's a cool $1 trillion. It's unbelievable how much our interest is on the debt, having eclipsed $39 trillion of total debt a couple of weeks ago. So the big concern always is what our debt represents as a percentage of our GDP. And it looks like we're on a track now where our debt, including the unfunded liabilities, could exceed 5 times our GDP. That's just danger territory. So I hope that those in Washington are paying attention to this and do have some concerns about this, and more importantly, maybe some ideas. And if not, they need to form a blue ribbon panel or something of some really smart people to come make some proposals to them on how to rectify this problem, because it's not going away, and it's going to start costing us even more than it is today. I mean, like in your personal life, in your personal pocketbook. Unbelievable. Well, we're going to step aside for a break right here as we are in Columbus, Mississippi, the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau. They're hosting the big Bassmasters Elite Tournament in this area over the weekend. Ian Bassey, President and CEO of Golden Triangle Development Link, joins Middays next.
Get the latest news from across
Days with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bike. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride it where I
Okay, third time I put the wrong headset on since I've been doing this job in 5 years. They're too close. Take that one away so I don't stick it on my head. We're back with you and at the Columbus Marina for the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau. There's a big Bassmasters Elite Fishing Tournament coming up this weekend here in Columbus, but the month of April is jam-packed as well in Columbus with some other events. Catfish in the Alley, Blues with a Side of Soul, Friday, April the 10th, 12 to 2 p.m. That's at Catfish Alley Stage, downtown Columbus. And live blues music, Saturday, April the 11th, 12 to 5. Performance location, again, Catfish Alley, 4th Street. And they're going to have some great bands on hand for that. Food as well. Should be a lot of fun. They got it going on here with the 2026 Spring Pilgrimage in Columbus, Mississippi, the Storybook South. Right now, it's our pleasure to welcome Ian Bassey, President and CEO of the Golden Triangle Development Link. Ian, thanks for coming on.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right, so how long you been in this job?
Oh, this is day 8.
Day 8. All right, awesome. And tell us about your background prior to that.
Well, I've been doing economic development for about 32 years, various places. I was most recently up in Oregon, principally converting a fighter base for the Air Force from F-15s to F-35s, and running about $500 million worth of construction up there, academic training center. Simulator buildings, what else? Repair facilities, things like that. But prior to that, I was running the economic development group in South Texas for Corpus Christi, and so was fortunate and blessed to be able to do work on a couple of interesting projects there, including some that familiar names here, including Steel Dynamics.
Yep,
known quantity to some of those folks. And was able to work with help land a Tesla lithium ore processing facility, and the largest deal in America in 2018, which was the Exxon and Saudi plastics facility. So within the field, there's probably about 20 of us that really work on some of the very large projects nationwide, and we kind of all know each other. And I got a call from some folks here and said, this is an opportunity. This is, you're known to us. And, the similarities with, it's still part of, the Air Force Base, and work on conversion of that as an opportunity, I think, for the region.
Yeah.
And so the steel folks as well. So,
well, you've certainly got a lot of positive to sell here in the Golden Triangle, numerous assets and other resources that I would think would be very excitable and very attractive to suitors.
Yeah, actually, if you follow the Golden Triangle for the last 20 years, it's almost an unprecedented amount of investment for a relatively small population area. And, these are folks that are dedicated to economic development. It's a full contact sport here.
Yeah.
In the SEC, it's an important it's an important thing. People appreciate economic development, and I would tell you, I was up in the Pacific Northwest, and people don't care. There's no real interest in economic development. We landed we're able to pull together a very large Amazon distributions facility, and governor doesn't even want to come to the meeting, come to the groundbreaking.
What's up with that?
They have other priorities. I think if you really break down kind of somewhere like Oregon or maybe Washington, maybe Washington's a little different, but there's no real interest in seeing the economy develop. They have their area of focus. They want pristine environment. But they're also wondering why housing is going through the roof, putting more additional restrictions and regulations on it. There's no real emphasis on creating high-quality jobs, high-paying jobs. So it's a different environment, really.
Interesting.
And I came out of at one point I was running the economic development group in Baton Rouge, and then where I was one of the main competitors for a number of projects here.
Sure.
And in Texas, where again, big investment, job creation, creating those high-paying jobs for citizens is a top priority.
Yeah, heavy focus. I wonder to some extent. I actually lived in Oregon for about a year, a long time ago. But I just wonder to some extent if they feel like, well, we have enough. I mean, they have been blessed.
Mm-hmm.
We're still sort of building in the South to a great extent, whereas Washington may be a little different than Oregon. Oregon is still a good bit rural. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, there really is. I was in the southern part of Oregon, and once you get up into the north part of the state, it's very much, Portland Metro, and then you go down the Willamette Valley. That's where the folks that don't want to see additional growth coming. The rest of the state is very much.
I agree.
The rest of the state, I was in a very, I'd call it libertarian area of the state where they want less government. We like our guns. We like like being left alone, and we'd like economic development and development projects. But they put it, the folks that are in control of the state are very much, a certain leaning kind of predilection.
Well, where you were is more similar to, I think, the attitude in Mississippi.
Very much.
I know in my experience, and it's been a long time, 40-something years when I was out there, but you get on the east side of the Cascades, it's night and day.
Oh, it is.
Getting on the coastal side.
It is. Now, there's a big movement there that there's a lot of folks on the eastern side really want to secede from Oregon.
Seen that,
and either create their own state or join Idaho. And I was back and forwards to Boise a lot, and it's, that's where our engineering companies were.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Beautiful, too.
It is.
Unbelievable landscape.
I built a house that was backing onto public land, BLM land, and I had a herd of deer that was about 20. I could show you pictures, and I mean, we some of the racks on these things, but it was pretty amazing. But we also had elk, and and I actually saw a wolf on the ridge ahead. And everybody says, "Do you know the difference between a wolf and a coyote?" And when you see a wolf, you know the difference.
Okay.
And I went in the office the next day and I said, "I think I saw." They're like, "Yeah, there's a pack up at Chiloquin, which is about 20 miles away, which is nothing for a wolf to cover in a night."
That's great. So you're settled in 8 days here. At least.
Just about, yeah.
Are you making calls? You working deals? What's going on?
Well,
let
me tell you, Gerard said before coming on, tell us about all the secret projects. And I can't do that. And then his producer said, just make something up. He'll never know. So I'm hitting the ground running. I'm trying to talk to as many folks and stakeholders and leaders as I can in the community, understand what the issues are, get an idea of where our kind of strengths and weaknesses are.
Sure.
Some of the opportunities. We have in week 2 we have shown people around, but in our business we show people around all the time. You give people community tours. Most of the time they don't come to anything, but you still have to turn over every rock and greet every business opportunity or every site selection, every engineering firm that's representing a company. You have to treat them with seriousness, and you never know. Something turns into something.
So it sounds like that you employ more of a proactive approach. Is that fair to say?
Trying to. The days when you could wait. I've been doing this long enough.
Yeah.
You'd wait for a deal to come in. I'm old enough that, when I first started doing it, you'd get a site selection, an RFP, request for proposals on the thermal paper over the fax, and the site selection consultant would say, we need the answers to these 50 questions in about, at the end of the month. That doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
Now, then it became, they send you a thing on a Friday and they need it by Monday morning. It's even faster than that. They are shopping communities before you even know you're being shopped. So you need to be able to have attractive sites, all your information, all your data points out there ahead of time. And you have to build the relationships with this, with these big engineering companies, nationwide engineering companies and law firms that represent it, site selection consultants. You have to be proactive in talking to them and going to meet them where they are. That's one of the things we really try to do.
Yeah, that's a good point, is that it's not like all this information about an area when an organization is looking at making an investment. They can obtain that without asking you questions.
And the thing that's really starting to happen is they're using AI a lot.
Sure.
And sometimes it's right, and sometimes it's wrong.
Absolutely.
So you have to make sure the information that's out there about your community and your region and your labor force and your tax structure and how business friendly you are, you have to make sure it's accurate and correct.
Yeah, that makes total sense. But let's change it a bit. Whereas before, they would have to request that information through an RFI, for example. Yep. Now they can get all that before asking you.
You don't know you're being shopped.
You're being shopped. You're being competed with against other areas, and you don't even know it.
Yeah,
and that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really changed over the last 30 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, we're going to come back and continue the discussion. Final segment of Middays is next. We're in Columbus at the Columbus Marina for the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau. We're visiting with Ian Bassey, the president and CEO of Golden Triangle Development Link. Stay with us.
At the Citizens Bank,
covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert, Middays with Gerard, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays, final segment for our broadcast today. It's an all-day deal here, SuperTalk Mississippi, though. We had mornings with Richard Cross. And, of course, Middays with me, and we've got the sports guys coming in later on today as well. So here to promote the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau. They've got the big Bassmasters Elite Fishing Tournament coming up this weekend and a whole series of events slated for the month of April when the weather is just delightful in the area, and a bunch of history here in Columbus as well. We're here at the Marina on the second floor with a beautiful view. But right now we're talking to Ian Bassey. He is the president and CEO of the Golden Triangle Link, talking about economic development. So just back to this region of our state here, Ian. Again, you got a lot to sell. There's a lot that I think prospective companies are looking at. You know as well as I do that with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was enacted last year, that's stimulating capital investment. I said before the thing ever passed, and you've shared with us, I've learned that you have a background in taxation, so we speak somewhat the same language there. But, the immediate expensing provision may be the most important aspect of the whole bill.
It's under what do you call it?
Underrated.
Yeah.
Totally. The individual provisions are great, but they don't stimulate the economy the way that does.
The other thing, I think we need to be paying a lot of attention to is there's companies that are making product domestically, selling domestically. They're not going to be impacted by the tariffs.
Right.
There are companies that are going to be, but we have a lot here on the ground that are going to be building their facilities to sell into the domestic market. I think they're going to see some advantages. The fact that in Mississippi the workman's comp costs are very much more affordable than when you get to the West Coast. The taxation structure. I mean, I'm going to tell you, where I used to work, I was bringing home about 45% of my check compared to,
Yeah.
And
state taxes in the state of Mississippi, and we're phasing it out, but we're already low. Mm-hmm. So we're already way down the list, and we have low sales taxes as well.
Yep. That's critically important.
Yeah.
So it's all about, if you look at the tax foundation that tracks performance and which states are moving in the right direction, which ones aren't. Mississippi's moving in the right direction.
No doubt.
Where I was in Oregon, they're moving backwards.
In the other direction. Washington, just nearby, adjacent.
And they're taxing the owners of companies additional now, and then there's going to be, in California has an exit tax.
Yeah, they want to chase them down.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all leaving.
Yeah, which is one of the areas I think, when people ask me, where do you think your happy hunting ground is for recruitment of companies, it's no secret that the West Coast is doing its best.
Running them off.
Yeah, I mean, God bless them. They're doing their own thing, but when it comes to how you be business friendly, putting less regulations, removing levels of red tape, that's absolutely huge. And there are companies where I was who were just shaking their head at things that were coming out of the state capitol.
We hear it all the time, and this. It's a kind of an axiom in economic development: is how do we get from spending money to making money, and how much time is there between that?
I go back to do you want to be part of production or overhead? We worked for the same company many years ago, and it was that's. You want to be on the production side.
That's exactly right.
How do you be a producer? How do you contribute versus you be the drag on the system?
Right. Well, I think we have a lot to offer here in the state of Mississippi, and the results, I think, bear that out with the massive amount of capital investment that's been made in our state in the last couple of years. It's just
people
incredible.
Get it.
They do.
People get it.
They're getting it. And I know from working with Amazon in Madison County that, at first when we approached them, are you serious? I mean, they discounted, and I think largely that's because, unfortunately, Hollywood and the media have painted a picture of Mississippi which is inaccurate.
One of the things that I started paying attention to when they made a couple of folks, the consultants that were working with the Golden Triangle, were actually made an approach. It was the forward momentum in the educational system.
Yeah,
and it's significantly improved. And I'll tell you, the old axiom I used to have was, if you have the best workforce within a 200-mile radius, you're going to start winning deals.
100%.
So everything about workforce training and it starts at the grade school level, and once you get through I used to get myself in trouble. Because I would say not everybody should go to 4-year college and study a communications degree. In Texas, we were creating a process technology program for millwrights and things like that. I was giving a presentation once, and I was talking about these, I say kids, but anybody under 30 is a kid to me. But they were doing millwright technology, and I said, these kids are making $80,000 a year. And I had a hand go up in the front row, and the plant manager said, I don't pay these people. I hire about 40 of them a year. I don't pay them $80,000. I pay them $140,000.
Heck yeah.
So.
And well worth it, because they provide value that is commensurate with that amount. I mean, it's just simple business math is all that is. So. Mm-hmm. Well, we appreciate it, Ian, and welcome. And I know you're going to have a great success here in the Golden Triangle. Ian Bassey, President and CEO of the Golden Triangle Development Link. That's a wrap here for Middays from Columbus. We've been here for the Columbus Lounge Convention and Visitors Bureau, as they are well poised to welcome all the bass fishermen into town for the Bassmasters Elite, and then a series of events throughout the spring. We are out of here today, back in the Element Wealth Studio in Jackson tomorrow. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.